Hello NBA fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly series here on the NBA, the week that was. In the 23rd episode of this series, I will be analyzing the Phoenix Suns and what went well for them this year, what could be worked on moving forward, and how I think they'll be doing when the season resumes in Orlando. So without further ado, let's get right into this episode of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly series here on the NBA, the week that was. The Phoenix Suns had quite an interesting year. While people think they could have done better due to the talent and potential that this roster had, it wasn't as bad a year as some people think it is due to the experience this core has gained and some highlights that I'll be pointing out later on. Let's start off by talking about the offseason. In this offseason, the Phoenix Suns had some good acquisitions, especially Ricky Rubio. He's a point guard that the Suns desperately needed to take that playmaking load off of Devin Booker to make him the primary scorer rather than the primary scorer and distributor to other players on that roster. I also feel that their draft pick, Cam Johnson, while they could have made a better pick that I feel was Matisse Thybulle, who ended up going to the Philadelphia 76ers later on in the draft, Cam Johnson is a good player. I feel that he's a great 3-and-D wing, and he's a complementary piece on any team. I've mentioned it in previous episodes. Every team needs a guy like Cam Johnson. Plays good defense on the wing, and has a decent 3-point shot. As a rookie, he averaged 8 points a game on almost 40% shooting from the 3, which are great numbers for his potential. While he is a bit older than the rest of the rookies, I think he'll develop nicely into another 3-and-D piece for this Phoenix roster. The continued development of Devin Booker was shown throughout this year. He continues to grow his offensive game, keep reaching new limits, even though we always feel, he's just going to be this good. He keeps getting better, finding new facets of his game. He's a great shooter, as we saw coming out of college and in his rookie year, but he's also developed a great slashing game, and he's just an all-around 3-level scorer that is definitely the star of this Phoenix team. It was good for him to, as I said, for the Suns to acquire Ricky Rubio, because Ricky Rubio took that playmaking load off of him. Rubio isn't traditionally a scorer. He's a traditional playmaker, and that worked well for Devin Booker. He could play off the ball, which is a strength of his, but he could also play on the ball and create his own offense, not having to worry to provide touches to other players such as DeAndre Ayton. Speaking of DeAndre Ayton, despite a 25-game suspension due to a doping violation to start off this year, I think he was underrated in his development this year. He continues to show that he's a great offensive center and has the knack to get rebounds, and he continues his development on his defense. He wasn't that great of a defender coming out of college, and honestly didn't justify the first pick in that draft, which had Luka Doncic and Trae Young and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But he is a solid player, a solid center in this league. If he can develop a 3-point shot, become some sort of a stretch 5, mirror his game around Karl-Anthony Towns. He already has the post game on lockdown. He uses his size and athleticism very well, can get offensive and defensive rebounds well. If he can he can improve his defensive chops and develop a 3-point shot, I think Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton are a duo to move forward with if you're the Phoenix Suns. The last two components of this Phoenix Suns team that I think did well this year are Mikal Bridges, who was a 3-and-D wing that they drafted and they acquired from Philadelphia on draft day in the 2018 draft, and he continued his development. Again, I feel that Phoenix has done a good job in finding role players for this team, and they just need that third piece to support. I think just a better improvement of Ricky Rubio in potentially this year's draft. If they can, with the 14th or 15th pick, find a point guard or a playmaker that slipped under the radar, I think that'll be a perfect addition for Phoenix. But going back to Mikal Bridges, in Villanova, he proved himself as a perfect 3-and-D wing with a great 3-point shot, one of the best shooters in the draft, but also one of the premier defenders in the draft. In Phoenix, he also played very well in his rookie year, was above average for a rookie, and continued his development, and I think he'll be a starter for this team moving forward. The last piece I want to mention is Monty Williams, the head coach that the Phoenix Suns hired this year. The Phoenix Suns haven't had a good track record with coaches since they moved on from Mike D'Antoni after the 7 seconds and less offense that's famed with Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire. Since then, they really haven't been able to build an identity. Monty Williams was a longtime assistant in this league, but finally found himself deserving. He finally got that role that he deserved as a head coach for Phoenix. They had a great start to this year, despite Ayton being suspended, and overall, they started off looking like a playoff team, but the relative inexperience of this core really let them down, which I'll be going into later. So overall, Monty Williams built a great culture in Phoenix. Young players continue to develop, so there are good times coming forward for the Phoenix Suns. In Orlando, however, they're put in a very unfortunate position, and I don't think they'll make the play-in tournament either. So expect them to be eliminated right away, and because I think the play-in tournament, if it even happens, is going to be between either Memphis, New Orleans, or Portland Trailblazers, the Phoenix Suns have a very, very minimal chance to even be contending for that play-in spot. So don't expect too much for the Phoenix Suns from this Orlando resumption, besides the fact that their young players continue to develop and gain more time against great opponents, which is always key for a young team like the Suns. I feel that there are two key components that really held the Phoenix Suns back this year from really contending for the playoffs. Firstly, it's just that this core is young. We've seen it with countless teams. Some teams just need more time to develop their young players and really build an identity with the core. Right now, I mean, Devin Booker, he's emerged as a star. Aiden still needs some time on defense. Cam Johnson's a rookie. Mikal Bridges is young. Kelly Oubre Jr., who I actually forgot to mention, let's talk about him now. Kelly Oubre Jr. also proved himself as a great wing scorer. He can play small forward or power forward, depending on if they're running a small ball or normal lineup, and he can really score the ball. Him and Devin Booker are really, really good, I think, together. They both have a good three-point shot, so they can work with each other, finding open spaces, getting in the spot to let the other person work, and they form a great pair on the wing for the Phoenix Suns. So yeah, Kelly Oubre Jr. was another guy I feel slipped under the radar in terms of his basketball skills this year. But yeah, I just feel that this team is very young, and it was tough for them to develop an identity, which eventually led to struggles against such strong teams in the Western Conference. And that's the other factor I feel that really held the Suns back this year. The Western Conference, in comparison to the Eastern Conference, is just so strong. It's tough for young teams like the Phoenix Suns to really, play well against experienced squads like the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nuggets, the Rockets, just countless teams in the West, versus where the East. I feel if the Phoenix Suns were in the Eastern Conference, they could have really pushed for that 8th seed, Brooklyn without Kyrie, with Kyrie being injured, Kevin Durant being injured, and really just not playing well, along with the Orlando Magic. They really could have vied for that 7th or 8th seed, which would have been great for players like Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson to really develop, but oh well, they're in Arizona, which isn't really in the East. So they had to contend with very tough teams. So overall, the inexperience of this core and just its geographical placement being in Phoenix really held the Suns back from contending for the playoffs. So, and I feel those are two things that can be improved. Inexperience will obviously help itself, will grow. Their players will grow over time, and that will just lead to them being more successful in the West as they learn to deal with more successful teams. So overall, the future is bright for Phoenix, and they should really believe in the players they have, especially Devin Booker, Kelly Oubre Jr., DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, and Cam Johnson. And with that, I would like to wrap up the 23rd episode of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly series here on the NBA, the week that was. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and as always, please leave a like down below and subscribe if you're new with the notification bell on. If you have any feedback from me, good or bad, please leave in the comment section down below, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly series here on the NBA, the week that was. See ya!